Europe was and still is hit hard by the COVID pandemic. Closed markets, lockdowns, uncertainty. How did Europe cope with the situation as a whole? How is the current situation? What strategies work better than others? What are the learnings? Today we want to discuss this topic from various angles with the following guests. We're happy to welcome Pablo Conde, Fashion Director from Spanish export organization ICEX, Stéven Déru, Sales and Marketing Director from French trade show View, and Tillessen, Chief Analyst, Deutsche Modeinstitut DMI from Germany. Welcome, gentlemen. I'm really happy that you are all participating in this debate. Pablo, I just wanted to start with you. Can you tell us a bit more about you and your organization? What is it that ICEX does?
So thank you, Saydou, for inviting me to this panel. I think it's very interesting. ICEX is the trade promotion agency in Spain, and we help Spanish companies go abroad and try to enter foreign markets in Europe and in other countries, in third countries.
Mm-hmm. So, of course, we're talking about the COVID pandemic. Let's go back in time, like 1 year ago. What was your first reaction personally, but also the reaction of your organization when you heard about the lockdown and the corona pandemic?
Being the trade promotion agency, we heard at first from the Chinese, from China, because we had some trade shows that were canceled in China in beginning of, end of February, beginning of March. So we already were seeing ahead how difficult times we're going to face. And being a worldwide pandemic, for us, it was very difficult to what to do and how to help our companies go abroad. Since you weren't able to travel, trade shows were canceled everywhere. So we decided to go digital, as everyone did, and we tried to help companies be present in the major platforms in fashion worldwide, such as Dior or the brand Circular in Europe, or other platforms, Zalando, for example, trying to help them keep the contacts. But it was very difficult since no one from the demand side wanted new products. The pandemic was global. Everyone was facing a huge decrease in demand. So for suppliers, it was a very challenging opportunity, and we decided to try to help in their digitalization, and they're going, let's say, digital. But it was very difficult times, and it still are difficult times because there is a huge uncertainty nowadays still.
Yeah. Can you take us through what happened really during those times, so that also the viewers that are not from Spain get a better understanding and better feeling for the situations, from the outside, it looked like you really had a very strict lockdown with people were not permitted to go outside, etc. Stores were closed. Could you take us through that timeline a bit, through those different stages and until now? Where are we now? But starting from back then.
Back then, it was very difficult. I think it was pretty much everywhere in every country. No one really know how to face it, what to do. And everyone decided to do a very strict lockdown for the first 3 months. In Spain, everything was closed. Even the companies at the beginning didn't really know if they were able to produce or not, which conditions they were able to go to work, which companies were supposed to be really working at that time and which weren't, the retail, how they should have been working or not. But after the first 3 months, in June, everything went quite normal. At the beginning, retailers could open with previous appointments. And after the summer, I believe everything went better than in other countries. And we decided not to have lockdowns anymore. We decided that economy was also very important, and in order to survive, for the companies to survive, we decided to do lockdowns within the country, in regions, cities, but not a general lockdown. And you can go out for a walk. Shops were open, supermarkets were open, and everything was, I wouldn't say normal, but as normal as it could be in Europe, pretty much. So I think we had a bad time at the beginning. The numbers weren't great as they are now. The figures, if you see the figures for COVID contagions, they are quite big right now between young people, and the effects aren't so big, but they are quite good. But we're also one of the countries with better vaccination rates. Around, so today was 43% of our population is already vaccinated, fully vaccinated, and around 53 it has at least one dose, and we are supposed to reach 70% of the population by the end of August. So we believe the situation will go as normal as possible after the summer, but I think everyone is wishing that. I don't know if really we're gonna get there, but everyone is wishing to go normal as soon as possible, and let's see how it goes.
Yeah. Stéven, just to introduce you a bit, can you tell us about who you are and who you work for, and then also take us through the situation in France? What was it like in France? But first of all, what is View, and what do you do?
Thank you, Saydou. I'm Stéven. I work for a new trade show called View, dedicated to men's fashion, accessories, menswear, ready-to-wear, and lifestyle products, which will be held in downtown Paris. But before this new project, I was working for the past 15 years in the trade show industry and worked for multiple trade show organizers such as Maison et Objet, Who's Next, or Tranoï.
Oh,
so
awesome.
The fashion industry has been hit very, very hard for the past 16 months, and also in France because
Go ahead. Just.
I'm waiting. It's good. So the COVID has hit the Europe in the middle of the sales campaign in January.
Mm-hmm.
So all the buyers were in Paris to buy collections, and right after, everything was closed, and it was a complete other world. So on a perspective of a brand, it started from something very interesting in January because the economy was very good at the beginning of 2020, and in 1 month the world has completely changed, and shops were closed. Brands couldn't produce their collection despite they received orders during all the sales campaign. And it has been very, very difficult for the past 16 months, clearly, even for the shops, even for the brands. And they needed to find solution, and good solution to stay alive and to keep going on their business, and maybe also to change their business.
Yeah. Was retail closed the entire time, or was it like in Spain, it was closed in the beginning and afterwards it was reopened? What was the political decision from France's government concerning that topic?
The first lockdown was very, very hard. It took 2 months, exactly the same as Spain and Italy. As I can remember, everything was closed. And we couldn't do anything. So no shops, nothing allowed, and it started in May last year. Then we had a bit of relief during the summer, and it started again in October. So October, it was a different lockdown with curfew and until Christmas. And at Christmas it reopened again, but right after Christmas, once again, new lockdown, curfew, and shops are now reopened. I think from March, April, I think it's back. It's again open.
Are there any conditions, like if you want to go shopping or something, do people have to bring a test, or as it used to be in Germany for a certain while, or is the number of people that can access a shop limited, or how does it work in France?
It's still limited. It's still limited. You can't shop as it was before. You have to respect a number of person per square meters. It is 1 square meter, 4 square meters per one person. So it does not allow a lot of people in a shop. So yeah, when you go downtown in Paris, you see people waiting waiting to go inside the shops. And we are at the moment in the sales period. I think it's the same all over Europe because we have the same dates. And you see at the front door of the shops, people waiting to go inside.
Karl, how was it in Germany?
Yes.
And please tell us who you are and who you work for, what you do.
Yes, my name is Tillessen. I'm the chief analyst of DMI, which is the abbreviation of German Fashion Institute. We are the leading trend institute, trend forecasting company in the German-speaking market. We provide data-based trend forecasts, which a wide range of trend forecasts that go from color forecast, trend colors, which is the basis, and go all the way to business consultancy with a strong focus on fashion.
Okay. Please tell everyone who's not German and who hasn't been here how Germany has dealt with the situation, just so that we can compare a bit how markets are at the moment.
Yeah, Germany decided to make to divide retail into two sections. One which they considered essential, which was grocery and drugstores, and almost everything else was considered non-essential. And I think in the international comparison, the non-essential, including fashion shops, clothing stores, brick and mortar stores were closed almost the entire time. So it was really, for brick and mortar retailers, it was really a nightmare, and it with short periods of half opening and then closing again, and then opening, but then you still needed a test, and so it was almost impossible for brick and mortar fashion stores to do any business for almost a year, which led to a very strong shift from brick and mortar retail to online shopping. And I think that was quite extreme in Germany. The closures of brick and mortar stores fashion brick and mortar stores were much longer and stricter than in most other European countries.
Okay. Pablo, when the situation came, you had to take some decision. What was the effect on the Spanish market finally? In what state was it, and what were the consequences of the implemented policies, but also on the situation?
I think we had to undertake very difficult policies, and like every country, and it was the result. For example, for the fashion industry, is that the turnover fell by 41% on the year on year, which is humongous. But I think that's something that happened. The patterns of consumption changed for every country. No one was really willing to buy fashion to stay at home, since you didn't have lockdown, but social events were forbidden pretty much for the whole year, or they were really limited. You do for home working. The beauty sector isn't very good. You don't need perfumes to be working in a computer. No one will smell you. So it was very difficult for the fashion industry. And also we saw for the supply chain, it was very difficult. And there were a lot of doubts because of the pandemic situation in Spain were risen about the Spanish companies, if they were able to fulfill or not what they had agreed with their retailers and their distributors. And I think it took some time to realize that since we are a provider and a producer of fashion in Spain, we were able to fulfill those demands without any problem. And I think Spanish companies will have an opportunity right now because being producers, we did change because of the pandemic, as Stéven was talking about it. No one is everyone is concerned about having their production be made really far away and being dependent on logistics, and that's something that is changing a lot. And I think Spain will use that opportunity also to be a private label provider of many companies, and I think that will be a very good opportunity. We're talking that Spain is the sixth worldwide exporter of fashion, so it's very important. And once they decided and adapted to the new situation, I think the numbers right now, the sales in June and July are pretty much the same as they were before in 2019. And that's something that is very important. As it happened in Germany, we had a lot of switching from brick and mortar to e-commerce. And because in a recent survey, 22% of the buyers were saying that because of health issues, they didn't really want to enter a brick and mortar, even if they were open. They'd rather buy it online than do it on offline. And we believe that will stay on like that, that we have a bigger share of the fashion industry will be done online, because also we had a lower number of transactions done online that we had that, for example, in France, the UK, or Germany. So we are around 20% of our fashion is done online, fashion sales, and the rest is done offline. So I think companies are really going stronger, revising their model, revising the values, and I think it's a very good opportunity. From every big pandemic and big crisis, we have new opportunities that companies should look forward.
You were already talking or mentioning a bit the changes in behavioral patterns. Carl, I mean, you're not only the chief analyst of DMI, but you're also a best-selling author because you wrote a book which is in the bestseller lists at the moment. With the title, I'm translating freely, Consumption, Why We Buy What We Don't Need, and where you basically take a look at the consumption model and the behavior. Could you, with all the knowledge that you have, could you identify new behavioral patterns that have come through in the crisis?
Well, as Pablo said, obviously, when you're stuck at home or working from home, you need less, and you have no social events. You need less clothing. You have less incentive to buy clothing, and that also to a big decrease in the consumption of clothing. And there was a lot of the big question was are people buying less clothes because they don't have the opportunity to show them, or are they buying less clothes because they decided to buy less for ideological or sort of sustainability reasons? And I think the data we have gives a very clear answer to that, because in 2020 the retail turnover was 5% higher than in 2019 year on year. So people in total, they bought more. So obviously it's not that.
Let me understand this right. So during Corona, they did spend more than before Corona?
They bought more things.
Things, yeah, not fashion. I'm not talking about fashion, but they spend more money. Okay.
Yes.
Food and wines.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't say they spent more money, because the spending on consumption includes restaurants and holidays. So went 5% down, but retail turnover, so buying things, went 5% up. So people were spending less money on experiences and more money on things, obviously, because most experiences simply weren't possible. But that goes to show that it's not a general anti-consumption zeitgeist that made people buy less clothes, but it's just that in lockdown they had different needs. They have spent more money on home entertainment, obviously, and less money on clothing. And so as Pablo's observations from Spain and our observations from other markets like UK or China show us that as soon as people can go outside again, they start buying clothes again, and they go back to the previous level, which doesn't mean that anti-consumerism isn't going to be an important topic in the coming years, but this is not going to show any day soon. But it's because now there's a pent up demand for clothing and certain things that first needs to be fulfilled. But once this is done within, let's say, 1 year time or 2 year time, this anti-consumerism zeitgeist, or what Vivienne West would called buy less, choose well, make it last, all this spirit will sooner or later hit the mainstream consumer. And I think there's good reason why even typical fast fashion companies like H&M established formats like Arket, and which provide garments that are design-wise and quality-wise more long-living than a typical H&M product used to be. So no, we don't have to be afraid that now that shops are open again and lockdown is finished, people will not go back to normal when it comes to buying clothes. They are going to buy even more as there's a pent-up demand. But in the medium terms, or in the long run, we have to be aware that people will be buying less than they used to in the past.
Stéven, do you agree? Is that something, or where would you see the long-term trends when it comes to the change in behavior? And do you also have examples of new trends that you see in France, that you maybe see in Paris, new concepts that haven't existed before, but that also go that are sort of due to the new corona and pandemic situation, but stem from a different approach and a new way of dealing with it.
Yeah, I totally agree with Carl's approach. I think it will take a bit of time to reach the mass market, but this way of thinking, buying less, and being more conscious about what you do and where it comes from is really taking a step ahead now, of course, in France, but also in Europe, and it's really touching also the young generation. What we can see right now is that, okay, you have a lot of chain store, you have a lot of big brands, you have a huge market of mass consumption. It is here, it is still working, and when you take the IFM data from last month, it says that the specialized stores are increasing on the past months, and they are like I think it's around 13%, an increase of 13% from previous May 2020. So it's still standing and it's still here. But on the other side, you can see new way of consuming. For example, the young generation is more eager to go on second hand, and the second hand shops, for example, in Paris, it's flourishing like mushrooms. You have second hand shops everywhere. Before you went to London to see second hand shops everywhere, but now it's also in France. In Germany, it's already there for a long time already, but now France is discovering the second-hand shops. So it's a bit funny, but you have another new way of consuming fashion and new way of giving life to the products. But it will take time to see a real shift in the way the population is totally changing their habits, clearly.
I mean, because you wanted to do a physical trade fair, how did it affect your business, and what did you learn from the pandemic? Learn as an organization.
You have different approach. Before you had a small a lot of people said that the trade shows are dead. It's old-fashioned, but and it was a bit decreasing. But 16 months after the COVID, you can't. You need to have new places to make exchanges. You have to see the people. You have to meet the people. You have to touch the products. You have to discover. You have to recreate emotions, and you have to also be human. And we were totally digital, and now we have to come back to humanity a bit, maybe in a different way, but we have to go back to not normal, but back to different. And last week I was at Petit Uomo. It was very strange because Petit Uomo is the reference of the market on the menswear. It's a very nice show, and I think everybody knows the event. But it was a different show with another amount of brands, 3 times less than before, so very different. But the atmosphere was very welcoming. They did a very, very good effort on how to access the show, how to make a pass on a trade show. It was very, very well organized. But what I I keep in mind is that everybody was very happy to meet each other, to exchange, to present products, not even taking an order or doing just business, but only having a new just bonding and making new connections, business connection, and it's very, very important. And the trade show industry has been hit very hard, and some will disappear, some will rebirth, some will appear. But we need trade shows, and we need, you can call it whatever you want, event, shows, trade shows, showroom, or conference, but it is necessary for the industry to have places to meet and to understand and to make the industry going forward.
I fully agree. I mean, we run a digital platform ourselves, but it's pretty clear that the personal and the interaction is super necessary. It's vital for the industry, and we have with our cooperation partners, Neonut and Inatex and others. We always say it's not the same, and digital will not replace the physical world, but it will be an add-on, and there are advantages to each media, basically. There are certain things that digital can do very well, and there are other things that the physical world does better, obviously, like haptic and touch and feel and all that. Stéven, one question: how did the pandemic affect? Because France is also a huge hub when it comes to trading fashion. Germany is more like a place where the consumption is, and Spain is also a producer company, so you're also a producer company, but for most you are a trading platform. How did Corona affect that function of the trading hub for a certain good in France? Obviously you probably think that did it affect them or did it not affect it?
You mean for the market globally?
Globally, yeah. I mean, whoever is trading something on a fashion market also sooner or later has to go by Paris, in one form or the other, in fashion. So, with all the trade shows not taking place, it's been a gap of 2 years, basically, that anything really took place in France. Do you see any damage that has occurred from that?
Of course you have damage. It would be totally misleading to say everything is normal, nothing happened. Yeah, it happens, and it's still really important. You have a lot of trade shows such as Germany and you have a lot of trade shows too. And also Spain, you have a lot of trade shows and events dedicated to fashion, and everybody has been hit. And you can, when you live on the rhythm of fashion weeks and trade shows, it's difficult to pass from 4 fashion weeks to nothing, or 10 trade shows a year to nothing. It's really. It was crazy. Nobody experienced that before. And the consequence of this, I think we will see it not right now because we are still in the pandemic. And the consequences, we will see this maybe in 1 or 2 years, not right now. Right now, it's economical consequences. Of course, when you're a trade show and you don't have any clients, you just have to survive, and you have to be mighty and find new ideas to continue to run your business as a company. And in France, we were very, very lucky because the government really, really helped. The companies and also all the workers, because we had a very very good system which was helping people during all this pandemic. It's still active right now, not the
Can you
same.
explain, sorry for interrupting, but can you explain what the measures were? Because, at some point, if you talk about Corona and COVID, you also have to talk about politics. Some are more happy than others with the politics of their country. So apparently you did things well in France. What is it that you did or that the government did? What support was there?
You don't have any perfect system, but in France, we must say that when the pandemic arrived, they decided to help all the people no matter what. So when you're an employee in a shop or in a company, you were helped by the state. So they covered your salaries to a certain amount, 80% of your salary. So you stayed home, you were unemployed, but you still had money to come each month just to cover like if you worked your expenses, your loan, and everything, and so on. It's really generous because we were paid to stay home, but we were unemployed. So it's a very big effort. And on the other side, it takes a bit after, but they decided, the Ministry of Economy decided to integrate in the calculation of taxes the loss of all the stocks. So if you are a shop and your stock is still there, you can deduct your stock from your tax, from your expenses. So it reduces the part of your taxes, and it was really important for the shops because it's almost 1 year without a proper activity, and it was very generous. Of course, we have other problems and other way to be not satisfied, but on this point, we must say that they did their job and they really helped the economy. Mm-hmm. But we are still in this system right now. It's a bit less generous, but this system is still going on. And as long as you stop this system, maybe at the end of this year, maybe in September, I think it will stop. What will happen? And maybe a lot of company will fall, and maybe a lot of company will not re-employ people, and the real crisis maybe is coming along. So let's stay positive, but this generosity has a limit.
Of course.
Limit will be maybe end of this year or at the beginning of next year.
Pablo, was there also help from the Spanish government for the industry? I mean, you are a government organization, yes, of course, I guess. But what was it like in Spain? How were people helped?
We had pretty much the same measures that they had in France. They had the public subsidy for the unemployed, let's say temporarily unemployed, because the activity wasn't going well. Because as you well know, a lot of our economy depends on tourism. So all those companies were facing huge problems since frontiers were locked down from Germany or UK or France. So those companies received subsidies. Also, companies were granted loans if they needed in order to survive. And there was different packages of help and aid to the companies in order for them to survive. They are still in place. And for some economies, they say, as they were saying, Stéven was talking about France, whenever they are taken out, they will have a bad effect on the economy. But that's what they're aiming is that to cause the less problem as possible, because they will aiming to take them out when the economy has recovered as much as possible. As I was talking before, we're expecting to have everyone let's say, 70% of our population with the vaccine. So I think whenever that happens and the economy is quite similar as was before, they will take out those stimulus and they will put other ones in place because we are going to receive a lot of EU funds with the solidarity mechanisms are put in place. So I think the perspective for the Spanish economy is very good. We're one of the worst ones last year in the effects on the GDP, and the perspectives are getting better and better for this year and the next 2 years.
Yeah. Are we just as lucky as those two are in
Well,
Germany?
I think we had a different approach to solving the problem. Statistically, only 13% of the German economy were directly affected by the pandemic or by the lockdown. The 87% of the economy were only indirectly affected. So our government focused very much on these 13% and tried to find out what are the individual problems of, like, let's say, restaurants, bars, theaters, cinemas, and of course physical retail, and try to come up with individual solutions to help these businesses. And it was quite obvious that the solutions they came up with weren't really just, and still aren't. So it seems that restaurants and cafes were kind of the winners, and physical retail, unfortunately, were the losers, and were kind of their problems were not really seen and solved. So they had to help themselves, more or less. I mean, there were certain helps, but it wasn't. It seemed they didn't have a very good lobby and didn't really get the attention that they needed, and didn't get the solutions they needed.
Yeah. So the German engine, let's call it, that is also important for the recovery of, for all of Europe in retail, still has to wait a bit. Still takes a bit of time until the engine starts back again. Carl?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, a lot of shops they came up with their own solutions. They started selling online, or now they recover. I mean, it seems like the small businesses were had a better solved their problems better and adapted better to the situation than the big companies, big chains. They for them it was much more difficult to live through the pandemic without government help.
Right. So, Stéven, in the talk that we had previously, you were also talking about the periphery being the winner a bit, somehow. Can you explain on that?
Yes.
In retail.
What Carl said before, because one thing which is really particular in France is that before the pandemic, we had 2 years of social crisis. The first social crisis was the Gilets jaunes, yellow vest. It was really a nightmare. And second one was the rent reform for all the rent system.
The pension.
It was really tough though. And 1 year after, we had the COVID. So the retail has been hit really suffered from these two social crises, and 3 times in a row, it was very difficult. So maybe the government also reacted based on on this fact too, and this generosity is to calm down the situation, which was very explosive.
We heard about that.
Regarding the periphery versus Paris, the big cities, because there's not only Paris, the big cities in general have been hit harder than the suburbs. Why? Because the pandemic hit harder also the big cities, and people from the big cities left the cities to go on the countryside. And small towns and small retailers in the suburbs have been affected by the COVID. I will say less, and clearly less than the big cities. And for example, right after the first lockdown, so between June 20 and September 20, all the retail industry, I mean multi-brand stores, brick and mortar stores, were doing very, very good outside Paris. And when the first lockdown or the second lockdown came, almost the brick and mortar industry was at the same level as 2019. So they have had good results. So now I think the situation is almost the same. Right now, the brick and mortar industry is really evolving in a good way. I won't say increasing because it is still 7.8% less than last year. So it's still difficult for the brick and mortar, but it's the periphery does better than the cities, clearly.
Pablo, what are...
Sorry, one thing.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
And just one thing, it's also the buy local motto, which has hit the brain of all the people. So now they are more eager to go on the shop close to their door than taking the car, going to shopping centers and buy a lot of stuff. So buy local and act local too.
I think that's one of the learnings. What is your learning, Pablo, from this whole thing? Like now, 1.5 years later, you take a look back at it, and what is your takeaway? What is your learning? Right?
I think that this pandemic has acted and accelerated a change that was already happening. Because now hearing about Carl and Stéven about the retail, and the brick and mortar was facing a very difficult situation before this pandemic. And they had to change and go omni-channel, not think only about brick and mortar. And this crisis and this pandemic has accelerated that part, that it has accelerated the digitalization of the companies, both the producers and the retailers, and I think that change will stay there, and it will be a huge challenge to go directly to the consumer for the producers, for example, and they will get a lot of feedback also from them and be able to produce something that is better and more suited for the consumer. And also, in the case of Spain and in the case of the European Union, it will be a very good opportunity for our companies to be local producers, let's say EU producers, instead of going to China or to going abroad to look for those producers. You can come to Spain and find them. They wouldn't be local as possible. I think that change is going to take more time, but I think that's a very good situation. So I will summarize it in two ways. One is the digitalization of the companies and the change they are facing, and that acceleration because of the pandemic. And the second one is that there is huge opportunities also from the sustainability point of view, from the locally produced point of view. And I think for the Spanish companies is a very good opportunity, and also to be private label producers for European companies, because we already have seen that some companies that were producing in Italy or in Portugal or in Turkey or in China, and those companies have closed, their suppliers have closed because of the pandemic, and they are looking for other ways and other countries to produce. And there we have, from ICEX point of view, have a lot of demands of possible suppliers for the companies for private labels, and I think that will be a very good opportunity. And also to see how trade shows are going to survive. Stéven was talking about the huge turnover they suppose these trade shows are in industry. And for us, from our point of view, since we help having national pavilions in trade shows, for me is a very good big challenge for those trade shows to survive right now, because they are trying to charge the same amount they were charging 2 years ago. Being, for example, in PT Uomo was the biggest trade show in Europe, and it was one of the biggest in the world, bringing people from every continent. And right now, because of travel restriction, it's impossible. But I'm not saying pity, but in many trade shows, they are charging the same they were charging 2 years ago. And because of digital trade shows, companies have changed the way they do it. They are really looking forward to trade shows, because normally the sales managers of the companies used to be those guys going to trade shows and going with their look and feel and shaking hands. But new companies, they are more digital and they don't really care about this personal contact. They will do it, but they will try to adapt to the new situation and go for hybrid shows or platforms, and then go to particular meetings. I think that's a very big challenge for the whole fashion industry.
Yeah. Stéven, that's also, I mean, hybrid models, that's also what you guys do. What are your learning? What is your learning from all this? If you sit down and think about it with a little bit of distance and with a good cup of coffee, and
you can't do like nothing happened. You can't act like nothing happened. And I totally understand Pablo's concerns and the way of thinking, and this is the reason why we did View, because we believe that you need places, but there is not only View. I mean, you have different options on the market. You have different shows which are not charging a lot the brands to exhibit the same as they did before. But a trade show is a cost. A trade show is an investment in terms of time, and it's an effort, and it's a lot of work. Beyond the money you put in, it's a lot of work. And if we step back a little bit, it's really important to say that, okay, trade show, it's a tool. Before it's just a tool that you can use to increase or to develop your business model, and to make your product known, and to create brand awareness. You have a tool. You have to use it the way it should be. You can be helped by the organizers, and they are here to help you in this way. I've heard a lot trade shows organizers saying, "Oh, we don't sell square meters." Yes, it is. To a certain point, when you are on big halls and big places, you sell square meters. You can't say that you are doing a selection. There is no selection. And what a brand is looking for is to find the right place where the brand feels comfortable, and they are sure to see the clients they are looking for. And this is the main concern of the trade show today: how to provide a trade show, an event, which matches the requirement of the brands which are gathered beyond the name of the trade show. And this is very important. Of course, it is a cost, but the advice I would tell a brand is, okay, which community do you belong to? And based on this fact, choose the right event. And I would say go to smaller events than the big players. The big players, they can work on different. Let me going back. You have two things. You have the mass market, and you have the specialized markets. If you are specialized, it means premium or on the special sector, for example, shoes or accessories or just ready to wear. You have a lot of things you can choose and a lot of parameters you have to identify before going on a certain trade shows, on a certain event. But if you're a big brand and you want to increase your brand awareness and create contacts, go to big trade shows, because you will have a big exposure to the whole world. If you want to create a step-by-step
approach, then rather go to a small one, I guess.
Step-by-step approach.
Yeah.
Okay, take a smaller one.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry for interrupting, but we have to come to an end pretty soon. Carl, what is your takeaway? What is your learning? What will you tell your kids in 10 years? What you took away from this?
Well, it was very interesting. We learned a lot. I think if you look at the three, when it comes to deciding for digital solutions or physical solutions, like Stéven said, the three reasons for physical retail and physical trade shows is meeting people, human exchange, then creating emotions, and touching the product. And I think the big learnings are that we now that we had to do without physical trade shows and physical retail for a while, we found that we highly underestimated the human exchange and the human meetings, and we highly underestimated the need to create emotions. And on the other hand, obviously, we highly overestimated the necessity to touch the products. And the ridiculous thing is that we had to learn this from the consumer. I mean, it was rather the fashion industry that said, but you have to touch the garment or the fabric or something. But then it was the consumers that said, no, I don't have to. I can. Well, they just had no problem buying things online or even sourcing fabrics or making wholesale orders online. That all worked very well. So it's not touching fabrics or products is less important than we used to think, but creating emotions and meeting people and exchanging with people is much more important and cannot as easily be replaced by digital solutions as we thought it could be.
Excellent. So before we come to an end, one last quick question to all of you. How long is it going to take? Is it over? Is it not over? Where are we going to be in 1 year? Very quick question from Pablo, from Stéven, and from Carl. Pablo, what do you think?
I don't think it's over. We can see we're already organizing trade shows in China for 2022, and there will keep being quarantines, travel restrictions. So we really don't think it's over. We are not going to normality as soon as we want to, but we'll have some kind of normality in Europe, at least for the next year. But going global, the globalization as we understood it, I think that's, I don't know if it's over, but it's different. It's going to be different, and the supply chains will change, and we'll go more local than we were before.
Yeah. Stéven, what do you think? And how long is it going to take? Is it over? Is it not over? How long is it going to take?
It's not over. As Pablo said, it's going to take a long time to recover and to. I'm not sure if be back to normal is still something that we can say. It will be very different and going. It's not over, and in the coming months, it will be still complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe end of next year it will be a bit better. We hope to 2022 will be better, but no, it will take time.
Okay, Cal, what do you think? In 6 months from now,
I think we will logistically. I agree. We will not. We might not even go back to normal, or there will really be a new normal when it comes to logistics But at least I can say that it feels right now that on the consumer side, fashion is back. I mean, we have people are enjoying fashion again. They are buying again. They are, they go out. The fun is back into fashion, and the culture of fashion at least is back, and that's the good news. I mean, it will, and I don't think we will have another wave or another lockdown. So at least we can enjoy fashion again, and fashion with a big F is back. But logistically, we in many ways we will stick to the solutions we found we had to find.
Awesome. That's a message of hope at the end. Carl, where can we buy your book? How can we get in contact with you to get more of your wisdom and?
The book is available wherever you can buy books. It's with a fortunately it's a global system where you can order international books all over the world.
And it starts with an A and it ends with an N, I guess. Exactly. Stéven, what is up for summer? If somebody wants to know more about you, how can I get in contact? We will leave also links in the description below under the videos that all viewers and people who are interested can get in contact with you. But besides this, any final words for the viewers? Anything that you want to communicate at the end?
Yes, if you want to belong to a new community of fashion designers and fashion buyers, join us in January from 21 to 21st to 23rd of next January in Paris. So.
Yes, we will. Pablo, you told me yesterday that ICEX is not only for export, but it also can help other countries to know more about Spain. What was it?
We can help you both locate producers in Spain if you want for private label. If you want to invest in Spain at some point, we can help you also to understand how it works, what are the incentives, which way and where is better to invest in Spain. I think you can count with us for anything, to look for new brands, new Spanish brands for your portfolio, or to look for possible suppliers for your private labels. Please contact us and we'll help you as soon as possible.
Excellent. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure talking to all of you guys. Thank you for your input, and thanks a lot to the viewers. Right now, you are here, you're viewing this and watching this because of Who's Live, our live trade show event. So if you feel like, then we invite you to visit all the showrooms on our platform, to knock on the doors and join the public live meetings of brands from all over the world. It's been a pleasure, so thank you all of you for your interest, and see you the next time. Bye-bye.